I was replacing the hinge on the garage door when my granddaughter asked the question that changed everything. "Grandpa, why aren't you invited to the family meeting?" My hand froze mid-turn on the screwdriver. The metal bit slipped, scraping across the steel plate with a sound like nails on a chalkboard. I looked down at Lily, 7 years old, gap-toothed, holding a juice box like it was the most important thing in the world. "What family meeting, sweetheart?" "The one at Daddy's house tomorrow night. Mommy said everyone's coming except you and Grandma." She sucked on her straw, oblivious to the way my chest had gone tight. "She said you wouldn't understand the grown-up stuff anyway." I set down the screwdriver very carefully. My hands wanted to shake, but I wouldn't let them. Not in front of Lily. "Did she now?" "Uh-huh. And Uncle Brett's coming, and Aunt Vanessa, and those people from Daddy's work, the ones with the shiny shoes." She wrinkled her nose. "I don't like them. They smell like Daddy's cologne, but worse." I forced a smile. 42 years I'd spent building things with these hands. 42 years since I'd bought the first acre of land outside Millbrook, with money I'd saved working double shifts at the lumberyard. The property was 60 acres now. Half of it was prime commercial real estate, sitting right where the new highway interchange was going in. The other half was home. My home. Our home. And apparently the subject of a family meeting I wasn't invited to. "Lily, honey, what else did you hear about this meeting?" She shrugged, already losing interest. "Just that Daddy's gonna make lots of money, and Mommy said you're too old-fashioned to understand business." She looked up at me with those innocent brown eyes. "What's old-fashioned mean?" "It means I still believe in telling people the truth to their faces instead of plotting behind their backs." She blinked. "Oh, can I have a cookie?" "Ask your grandma." Lily skipped off toward the house, her light-up sneakers flashing with each step. I stood there in the garage, surrounded by the tools I'd collected over decades, and felt something cold settle in my gut. My son was planning something big enough to need a family meeting, something that involved my property, and I wasn't invited. I picked up the screwdriver again, but my mind was already 3 steps ahead. I'm not a stupid man. Not educated, maybe. I'd quit school at 16 to help my dad keep food on the table, but not stupid. I knew the signs. I'd seen them for months now. The way Derek had suddenly started asking questions about the property lines. Casual questions. "Hey, Dad, you ever think about what this place could be worth?" Or, "Dad, you got the deed filed under your name or a trust?" The way his wife, Pamela, had started bringing her father around. Gerald Winters, attorney at law, with his expensive suits and his habit of walking my land like he was already measuring it for something. The way Derek had asked to borrow the original survey maps last month. "Just curious about the history, Dad." He'd never returned them. I'm 63 years old. My back aches when it rains. My knees pop when I climb stairs. But my mind works just fine, and right now, it was working overtime. I walked into the house through the side door. Helen was in the kitchen, kneading dough for tomorrow's bread. 40 years married, and I could still read her moods by the way she worked the dough. Today she was pressing hard, folding fast. She was angry about something. "You hear about this family meeting?" She didn't look up. "Lily told you." "So you knew." "I found out this morning. Pamela called to ask if I could watch Lily tomorrow night. Said they had important business to discuss." Now she did look up, and her eyes were sharp. She said it 3 times. Important business, like I'm too dense to get the hint the first time. Helen's no fool either. She'd been a bookkeeper for 30 years before retiring. She could spot a discrepancy in a ledger from across a room, and she could smell bullshit from even farther. "They're going after the property," I said. "Of course they are." She went back to kneading. "That land's worth $2 million now, maybe 3 with the highway coming in. Derek's been underwater on that property management business for 2 years. Pamela's father's been circling like a vulture since last Christmas." They can't do anything without my signature. No? Helen folded the dough one more time, then covered it with a cloth. But they can make your life miserable trying to get it. They can pressure you, guilt you, make you feel like you're standing in the way of your own son's success. She was right. I could see it playing out already. Derek showing up with spreadsheets and projections. Pamela working the emotional angle, talking about Lily's future, about college funds and opportunities. Gerald bringing the legal pressure, talking about estate taxes and probate and how much easier everything would be if I just signed over power of attorney now, while I was still of sound mind. They'd been setting this up for months, and I'd been too trusting to see it. I need to make some calls, I said. Helen nodded. She understood. We'd built this life together, brick by brick, dollar by dollar. Nobody was taking it without a fight. I went to my office, really just the spare bedroom with a desk and a file cabinet, and pulled out the property folder. Deeds, surveys, tax records, everything documented and organized because Helen had insisted on it years ago. "You'll thank me someday," she'd said. Today was that day. I spread the papers across the desk. The original deed from 1983, the expansion purchases in 87, 94, and so on. The commercial zoning variance I'd gotten approved in 2018. Everything was in my name, mine and Helen's, joint ownership with right of survivorship. I pulled out my phone and called Tom Bradshaw. We'd gone to high school together back in the Stone Age, and now he ran the county clerk's office. "Tom, it's Frank Morrison." "Frank, long time. What can I do for you?" "I need to know if anyone's filed anything regarding my property in the last 6 months. Zoning requests, variance applications, anything." There was a pause. "Give me a minute." I heard keyboard clicking. My heart was beating harder than it should. I told myself I was being paranoid. Derek was my son, my only child. He wouldn't actually try to steal from me, but that cold feeling in my gut wasn't going away. "Frank, you there?" "Yeah." I got 3 pre-application inquiries filed under Morrison Properties LLC, all within the last 4 months. They're exploratory, nothing binding yet, but they're looking at commercial development options for your 60 acres out on Route 17. Morrison Properties LLC, not Morrison Land Development, which was what I'd called my business for decades. A new LLC. In Derek's name, probably, using my land as the asset. "Who filed them?" "Let me check." More clicking. "Winters and Associates Law Firm." Pamela's father. "Thanks, Tom." "Frank, whatever's going on." "I appreciate the help." I hung up before he could ask questions I didn't want to answer. So that's how it was. They'd already started the process, filed the paperwork, made inquiries with the county, all without saying a word to me. They were building their case, getting their ducks in a row, and when they finally brought it to me at their little family meeting, it would be presented as a done deal. All I'd have to do is sign on the dotted line and let them handle everything. For my own good, of course. For the family. I sat there staring at the papers until Helen came in with 2 cups of coffee. She set one in front of me and took the chair across the desk. "How bad?" "They filed development inquiries under a new LLC, using my land as the asset." She sipped her coffee. "That's fraud. Only if they actually use the land without permission. Right now it's just exploratory." I rubbed my face. "They're smart. Gerald's coaching them. They'll make it look like they're just trying to help me maximize my assets, trying to take care of their old man." "What are you going to do?" I looked at the papers, at the deeds with my name on them. "I'm going to give them exactly what they want." Helen raised an eyebrow. "Just not the way they expect." I spent the rest of the afternoon making calls. My lawyer first, not Gerald Winters, thank God, but Linda Chen, who'd handled our wills and estate planning 5 years ago. She was sharp, no nonsense, and she didn't like games. "Frank, if they're filing development applications using your property without authorization, that's a serious problem." "I know, but I don't want to go to war with my own son if I don't have to. What do you want to do? I want to make sure he can't do anything without my explicit approval. No backdoor legal maneuvers, no presumed authority. I can draw up a trust document, put the property in trust with you and Helen as primary beneficiaries and trustees. Any decisions about development, sale, or transfer would require both your signatures. It would lock down the property legally. How fast can you do it? I can have something ready by tomorrow afternoon. But Frank, it needs to be notarized, and you'll need witnesses. I'll handle it. Just get me the paperwork. She promised to have it ready by 3 p.m. I hung up and stared at the wall. Tomorrow night was the family meeting. Tomorrow afternoon, I'd be signing documents that would pull the rug out from under everything they'd planned. Helen came back in around dinner time. I hadn't eaten, hadn't even moved. You okay? No. I looked at her. How do you raise a kid for 35 years and not know he's capable of this? You know exactly how. Her voice was gentle but firm. You taught him to be ambitious, to see opportunities, to think big. You just didn't teach him that some things aren't opportunities. I taught him to be honest, and he learned to be clever instead. She sat down again. Derek's not stupid, Frank. He's just selfish, and Pamela's worse. That woman's been trying to upgrade her entire life since the day she married him. Your land is just another stepping stone. I knew she was right. I'd seen it at family dinners, at holidays. The way Pamela would mention their friends who'd bought bigger houses, started businesses, made partner at law firms. The way she'd look at our property with calculating eyes, adding up the value. And Derek had absorbed it. Slowly, over years, he'd changed from the kid who used to help me fix fences to the man who wore designer suits and talked about leveraging assets. When had that happened? When had I lost him? I'm going to the notary tomorrow evening, I said. Right before their meeting. Helen nodded. I'm coming with you. You don't have to. Frank Morrison, if you think I'm letting you handle this alone, you're crazier than I thought. She reached across and took my hand. We built this together. We're protecting it together. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about Derek as a kid, 5 years old, following me around the property with a toy hammer, pretending to help. 10 years old, learning to use the real tools. 15, working summers with me, complaining about the heat but showing up every morning. What had gone wrong? Or maybe nothing had gone wrong. Maybe this was just who he was. Maybe I'd just been too blind to see it. Morning came gray and cold. Helen was already up, dressed, moving around the kitchen with purpose. We ate breakfast in silence. At noon, Linda Chen called. Documents are ready. I'm at my office until 5. We'll be there by 3. Frank, are you sure about this? Once you sign, it's done. No easy reversals. I'm sure. At 2:30, we drove into town. Millbrook was small enough that everyone knew everyone, which meant by tomorrow morning, half the town would know Frank Morrison had been to see his lawyer. That was fine. Let them know. Linda's office was in a converted Victorian house on Main Street. She met us at the door, papers in hand. This is a revocable living trust, she explained. You and Helen are co-trustees and primary beneficiaries. The property is transferred into the trust, which means it's no longer in your individual names. Any decisions regarding the property require both trustees' signatures. If something happens to one of you, the survivor maintains full control. What does this mean for Derek's development plans? It means he has no authority. None. He can't file applications, can't sign contracts, can't make deals. The property belongs to the trust, and only the trustees can act on behalf of the trust. Perfect. We spent an hour reviewing every page. Linda was thorough. She explained every clause, every provision, every potential scenario. Helen asked questions I hadn't thought of. By the time we were done, I understood exactly what we were signing. I need witnesses and a notary, Linda said. I've got both. She stepped out and returned with 2 of her paralegals and a notary public. We signed. Helen and I, our names side by side like they'd been for 40 years. The witnesses signed. The notary stamped and signed. It was done. "I'll file this with the county first thing Monday morning," Linda said. "But as of right now, that trust is active. Your property is protected." I shook her hand. "Thank you. Frank, I hope I'm wrong about your son." "So do I." But I wasn't wrong. I knew I wasn't. We drove home in silence. It was 5:30. Derek's meeting was at 7. Helen and I sat in the driveway for a moment. "You want to go?" she asked. I wasn't invited. "Since when has that stopped you?" I thought about it. Thought about Derek's face when I walked in uninvited. Thought about Pamela's horror, Gerald's legal outrage. "Not tonight," I said. "Tonight they get to have their meeting. They get to make all their plans. They get to celebrate their brilliant scheme. And then? And then Monday morning they find out none of it matters." Helen smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "I'm proud of you." "For what?" "For not doing what I would have done." "What would you have done?" "Shown up at that meeting with a baseball bat." I laughed. First time all day. Still time for that. We went inside. Lily was staying at Pamela's sister's house tonight. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I kept thinking about Derek and his conspirators, sitting in his living room, passing around spreadsheets and architectural renderings, dividing up money that didn't belong to them. My son, my only child. At 8 p.m., my phone rang. Derek. I let it go to voicemail. 30 seconds later, it rang again. Again, I ignored it. Third time, I answered. "Dad, where are you?" "Home." "Where else?" "Why aren't you picking up?" "I was busy." "What do you need?" There was a pause. Background noise, voices. He was still at the meeting. "Nothing. Just wanted to say hi. Check in." "At 8 o'clock on a Friday night?" Another pause. "Yeah, just, making sure you're okay." Making sure I wasn't suspicious. Making sure I was still the trusting, naive old man who'd let them do whatever they wanted. "I'm fine, Derek. Enjoy your evening." "Dad." I hung up. Helen was watching from the doorway. That was cold. I'm practicing. For what? For Monday, when they realize what I've done. She came over and sat next to me on the couch. We didn't turn on the TV, didn't talk, just sat there together like we'd done 1,000 times before. But this time was different. This time, we were at war with our own son, and we'd already won the first battle. He just didn't know it yet. Before we go any further, hit the hype button, take a second to subscribe and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, what would you do in this situation? Saturday morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls. 12 from Derek, 3 from Pamela, 2 from numbers I didn't recognize. Probably Gerald and his associates. I ignored all of them. Helen made pancakes. We ate on the back porch, looking out over the property. 60 acres of land I'd bought piece by piece. Every acre had a story. The first 10, bought with money I'd saved for 5 years. The next 15, purchased with the life insurance money when my father died, because he'd have wanted it that way. The commercial frontage along Route 17, bought at auction in '94, outbidding 3 developers who'd tried to intimidate me into backing off. This land was mine. Every goddamn inch. My phone rang again. Derek, I answered this time. "Dad, we need to talk." "So talk." "Not on the phone. Can you come over?" "Why?" "Because we need to discuss something important. About the property." There it was. No more pretense, no more casual questions. They'd made their plans last night, and now they were ready to pitch them to me. "What about the property?" "Dad, just come over, please. This is important." "I'm busy today." "Doing what?" "None of your business." Silence. Derek wasn't used to me pushing back. I'd always been the accommodating one. the understanding one. Sure, son, borrow the truck. Of course, son, I'll co-sign that loan. No problem, son. Take whatever you need. Dad, what's going on with you? Nothing. I'm just not available today. This is about the meeting, isn't it? His voice shifted. Lily told you. I didn't answer. Dad, listen. I know it might seem like we were excluding you, but it wasn't like that. We were just trying to handle some preliminary details so we wouldn't waste your time with the boring stuff. Uh-huh. We're family. We're doing this for the family, for all of us. There's serious money at stake here, and I'm trying to make sure everyone benefits. Everyone. Yes, including you and Mom, especially you and Mom. Do you know what that land could be worth if we develop it properly? 4 million. Maybe 5. We could set you up for life, set Lily up for life. I'm already set up for life. I've got everything I need. Dad, you're living in a house built in 1975. The roof needs replacing. The plumbing's a mess. It's my property, my money, my choice. That's exactly the kind of thinking that keeps people poor. There it was. The real Derek. Not the diplomatic businessman trying to sweet-talk his father. The frustrated, impatient man who thought he was smarter than everyone else. Watch yourself, son. I'm sorry, but it's true. You've got this asset just sitting there, losing value every year, because you're too stubborn to see the bigger picture. I'm trying to help you. By filing development inquiries without telling me? Silence. Long, heavy silence. How did you... I'm not stupid, Derek. I never said you were. But Dad, those were just exploratory. Just seeing what our options were. We weren't going to do anything without talking to you first. You're talking to me now. Yes, exactly. So come over. Let me show you what we've put together. Let me show you the projections, the plans. This could change everything for us. Us. The family. All of us. I looked out at the property. Morning sun hitting the trees. Birds circling. The old barn I'd rebuilt twice. The creek running along the southern boundary where Derek used to catch crawdads as a kid. I'll think about it. Dad! I hung up. Helen was washing dishes. How mad was he? Mad enough to slip up and tell the truth. Which was? That I'm too stubborn and stupid to see what a gold mine I'm sitting on. Charming. She dried her hands. What now? Now we wait for them to make their next move. The next move came at 2 p.m. A car pulled into the driveway. A BMW sedan, black and polished. Gerald Winters stepped out, followed by Derek and Pamela. Here we go, Helen muttered. I met them at the door. Didn't invite them in. Frank, good to see you. Gerald extended his hand. I didn't take it. What can I do for you? We'd like to talk. About a business opportunity that could benefit everyone involved. I'm listening. Inside would be better. This is a conversation that requires some privacy. I didn't move. You can say whatever you need to say right here. Gerald's smile tightened. Pamela looked at Derek, who was staring at the ground like a kid being scolded. Frank, I understand you might feel blindsided by some recent activities, Gerald began. But I want to assure you, everything we've done has been above board and in your best interest. That's so. Yes. You see, Derek came to me several months ago with concerns about the property, concerns about estate taxes, about liability, about the financial burden you're carrying. As his father-in-law and as a legal professional, I felt obligated to help him explore options. Options. Yes. Options for protecting the property, maximizing its value, and ensuring that when the time comes, God forbid, the transfer goes smoothly and your family isn't left with a tax burden that could force a sale. It was a good pitch, smooth, practiced, the kind of thing that sounded reasonable if you didn't think too hard about it. You filed development inquiries with the county, using my property as an asset. Gerald didn't even blink. Exploratory inquiries only. No commitments, no contracts. We needed to understand the property's potential value to properly advise you on estate planning options. Estate planning. Yes. Frank, you're 63 years old. Helen's 61. You have significant assets and minimal planning. If something happened to you tomorrow, do you know what the tax implications would be? Do you know how quickly the government could seize this property? He was good. I had to give him that, turning it into fear, making it about protecting me. I've got a will. A will isn't enough, not for an estate this size. You need a trust. You need proper planning. You need legal protection. Interesting, because I already set up a trust. The words hung in the air like a bomb. Derek's head snapped up. Pamela's mouth opened. Gerald's eyes narrowed. What? Yesterday afternoon. Set up a revocable living trust. Put all the property in it. Helen and I are co-trustees. Any decisions about the property require both our signatures. Derek stepped forward. You did what? Protected my assets. Isn't that what you were so worried about? Dad, that's not. We were going to help you set up a trust, a proper one, with professional management. Professional meaning you. Meaning people who know what they're doing. Gerald held up a hand. Frank, I'm sure whatever you set up is perfectly adequate for your immediate needs. But I strongly recommend you have it reviewed by a professional. Estate law is complex, and mistakes can be costly. I had a professional draw it up. Linda Chen. You know her? Gerald's face went flat. He knew Linda. She was better than him, and everyone knew it. Linda's very competent, he said carefully. But Frank, this kind of decision shouldn't be made hastily. You need to consider all the implications. I did. I considered that my son was trying to cut me out of decisions about my own property. I considered that you were coaching him on how to do it legally. I considered that nobody bothered to ask me what I wanted. We were trying to surprise you, Pamela burst out. We were putting together this whole presentation with charts and projections, and we were going to show you how much money we could make for everyone. We were trying to do something nice by excluding me from the planning, because we knew you'd be stubborn about it, just like you're being now. Helen appeared in the doorway behind me. I think you all should leave. Mrs. Morrison, please, let's all calm down, Gerald tried. Get off our property. Derek looked at me, really looked at me. Dad, please, I know you're upset, but can we just talk about this? Just the two of us? Not right now. When? I'll let you know. Dad, leave Derek. He stood there, mouth working, trying to find words. Finally, Pamela grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the car. Gerald followed, but not before giving me a look that promised this wasn't over. They drove away. Helen and I stood in the doorway, watching the dust settle. That went well, she said. It's going to get worse. I know. We went back inside. I felt sick, actually physically sick. That was my son, my kid, the boy I'd taught to ride a bike, to throw a baseball, to use a level and a saw, and I'd just told him to get off my property. But what else could I do? Let him steal from me? Pretend everything was fine? Helen made tea. I didn't drink it, just sat there, staring at nothing. You did the right thing, she said. Did I? Yes, Frank, they were going to steamroll you. Gerald had that whole speech prepared. They were going to guilt you, scare you, manipulate you into signing over control. If you hadn't protected the property first, you'd be sitting here right now wondering what the hell just happened. He's my son. I know. Her voice was soft, and that makes it hurt more. But he's still wrong. The phone rang again. This time, it was Linda Chen. Frank, I just got a very interesting call from Gerald Winters. Let me guess. He wants to review my trust documents. He wants to challenge them. Claims you signed under duress or diminished capacity. I barked a laugh. Diminished capacity, that's rich. It won't work. You're clearly competent. I have documentation of our conversations, and the notary confirmed you understood what you were signing. But it tells me they're serious about this. Yeah, They're serious. What do you want to do? Nothing. Let them make the next move. Frank, if they're planning to contest this legally, then let them try. They'll lose. It'll be expensive, time-consuming, stressful. Don't care. That property is mine. She sighed. All right, but keep me in the loop. If anything escalates, I need to know immediately. Will do. I hung up and looked at Helen. They're going to contest the trust. Of course they are. Too much money at stake to just walk away. Gerald said it could be worth $5 million. He's probably lowballing. With the highway interchange, good development, right timing, could be 8, maybe 10. I'd never thought of my land in those terms. I'd thought about it as home, as work, as legacy, not as dollar signs. Maybe that made me naive. Maybe that made me a fool. But I didn't care. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I kept thinking about the look on Derek's face, the anger, the betrayal, like I'd done something wrong by protecting my own property. How had it come to this? I got up around midnight and went outside. The property looked different in the dark, mysterious, almost threatening. I walked out to the southern boundary, to the creek. Stood there listening to the water. I'd brought Derek here when he was 6, taught him to skip stones. He'd been so proud when he finally got one to skip 3 times. When had that kid become someone I didn't recognize? My phone buzzed. A text message from a number I didn't know. This isn't over. You're making a mistake. I stared at it. Could have been Derek. Could have been Gerald. Could have been anyone. I deleted it and went back to the house. Helen was awake, sitting at the kitchen table. Can't sleep either? I asked. Thinking. About? About what comes next. They're not going to give up, and they're not going to play fair. I know. Gerald's connected. He knows judges, knows politicians. He could make this very difficult. Let him try. She looked at me. Frank, I need you to promise me something. What? Promise me that no matter what happens, no matter what they do or say, you won't give in. Because the moment you show weakness, they'll exploit it. I promise. I'm serious. They're going to try everything. They'll guilt you. They'll threaten you. They might even try to use Lily against you. They wouldn't. Pamela would. In a heartbeat. She was right. Pamela would absolutely use Lily as leverage. What about college, Frank? What about her future? You're being selfish. I could hear it already. Then we'll deal with it. Helen reached across and took my hand. Together. Together. Sunday passed in tense silence. No calls, no visits. Just quiet. Too quiet. Friday morning, Linda called. Frank, we have a problem. What now? Gerald filed a motion. He's arguing that the trust was created under duress, that you were pressured into signing by my office, that you didn't fully understand the implications, and that the trust should be invalidated. That's bullshit. I know, but he's got a hearing scheduled for next week. We're going to have to prove you were competent and acting of your own free will. How do we do that? Testimony, documentation, character witnesses, and Frank, we need to prepare for them to attack you personally. Your age, your health, your mental state. They're going to try to paint you as confused and easily manipulated. I'm 63, not 93. Doesn't matter. To a judge, you're elderly, and Gerald's going to exploit that. What do I need to do? Be ready to testify. Answer questions clearly and confidently. Don't get angry, don't get defensive. Just be calm and rational. When's the hearing? Wednesday, 10 a.m. 4 days. I hung up and told Helen. We need to prepare, she said immediately. Linda's going to coach you, but you need to practice. Every question they might ask, every angle they might attack from. I don't know if I can do this. Yes, you can, because you have to. She was right. We spent Friday afternoon rehearsing. Helen played Gerald, asking brutal questions. Mr. Morrison, isn't it true you were angry with your son when you created this trust? I was protecting my property. That's not what I asked. Were you angry? Yes. And doesn't that suggest you weren't thinking clearly? That you were acting out of emotion rather than reason? No. It suggests I was smart enough to see manipulation when it happened. Or paranoid enough to imagine it. Around and around. Every question designed to make me look incompetent. Every answer needing to be perfect. By evening, I was exhausted. You're getting better, Helen said, but you need to stay calmer. Don't let them see you get frustrated. How am I supposed to stay calm when they're calling me senile? By remembering that getting angry proves their point. Saturday and Sunday passed in a blur of preparation. Linda came over both days, drilling me on testimony techniques, how to sit, how to speak, how to look at the judge. Never look at Gerald when you answer, she instructed. Always look at the judge. That's who you're talking to. Gerald's just trying to rattle you. He's good at it. I know. But you're better than this. You're smart, articulate, and you know exactly why you did what you did. Just communicate that clearly. Monday, I couldn't focus on anything. Helen and I went through the motions of daily life, but everything felt surreal, like we were waiting for an execution. Tuesday evening, Linda called with an update. Gerald's bringing witnesses, Derek obviously, Pamela, and he's got a doctor who's going to testify about cognitive decline in elderly adults. A doctor who's never examined me. Doesn't matter. He's an expert. He'll talk about general patterns, statistics, risk factors. Make it sound like anyone your age is potentially incompetent. That's insane. That's legal strategy. What about our witnesses? I've got Tom Bradshaw from the county office. He'll testify that you were clear and purposeful when dealing with property matters. And I've got your family physician, Dr. Patterson. He'll confirm you're in good health with no cognitive issues. Is that enough? It has to be. Wednesday morning came cold and clear. Helen and I dressed like we were going to a funeral. Black and gray. Somber. The courthouse was downtown, an old limestone building with marble floors and too much echo. Linda met us outside. Remember everything we practiced. Stay calm. Be clear. Look at the judge. I know. And Frank? No matter what Derek says in there, don't react. He's going to try to hurt you. Don't let him. We walked inside. Courtroom C, small, wood-paneled, with a judge's bench that looked like it belonged in a castle. Judge Patricia Hammond presided, mid-50s, gray hair, sharp eyes. She looked like someone who didn't suffer fools. Gerald and Derek were already there. Pamela, too. They sat on one side of the courtroom. We sat on the other. Derek wouldn't look at me. All rise. Judge Hammond entered. We stood. Sat. The bailiff called the case. In the matter of Morrison Family Trust, Gerald Winters representing Derek Morrison, petitioner. Linda Chen representing Frank Morrison, respondent. Gerald stood. Your Honor, we're here because Mr. Frank Morrison, age 63, created a trust under circumstances that suggest undue influence and possible cognitive impairment. We ask the court to review the trust's validity and consider whether Mr. Morrison was truly acting in his own best interest. Ms. Chen? Judge Hammond looked at Linda. Your Honor, Mr. Morrison created a legally sound trust to protect his assets. The petitioner's father-in-law, Mr. Winters, is attempting to undermine that trust because it interferes with the petitioner's financial schemes involving property he doesn't own. Judge Hammond's eyebrows rose. That's a serious accusation. One I'm prepared to prove. Very well, Mr. Winters, call your first witness. I call Derek Morrison to the stand. Derek walked to the witness stand, got sworn in, sat down looking nervous. Gerald walked him through the setup, how close they were as father and son, how worried Derek had been about his father's well-being, how he'd tried to help with the property management. And what happened when you tried to discuss development options with your father? Gerald asked. He refused to listen. He became angry, defensive. He accused me of trying to steal from him. And how did that make you feel? Confused, hurt. This wasn't like my father. He's always been reasonable, willing to discuss things, but suddenly he was paranoid, suspicious of everyone. When did you first notice these changes? Over the past year? He started forgetting conversations we'd had, repeating himself, getting confused about dates and appointments. It was complete bullshit. I'd never forgotten anything. But Derek sold it well. Sounded concerned, not accusatory. And then what happened? Gerald prompted. He suddenly, without discussing it with anyone, created this trust. When I asked him why, he said he needed to protect himself from me, his own son. It was like he didn't know me anymore. Linda stood. Objection. The witness is offering medical opinions he's not qualified to make. Sustained, Judge Hammond said. Mr. Morrison, please stick to what you observed, not your interpretations. Gerald nodded. Derek, in your opinion, was your father acting rationally when he created this trust? Objection, Linda said again. Same issue. I'll rephrase. Derek, did your father's behavior seem normal to you? No. It seemed like he was scared of something that wasn't real. Gerald sat down. Linda stood up. Mr. Derek Morrison, you formed a company called Morrison Properties LLC, correct? Yes. Using your father's property as the primary asset, correct? We were exploring options. Yes or no? Did you list your father's property as an asset of your company? Derek hesitated. Yes. Without your father's permission? We were going to discuss it with him. After you'd already made commitments to investors? We were being preliminary. Mr. Morrison, you took money from investors based on promises involving property you didn't control. Isn't that fraud? Objection, Gerald stood. Argumentative. Withdrawn, Linda said. Mr. Morrison, how much debt are you currently carrying? I don't see how that's relevant. Answer the question. Derek looked at Gerald, who nodded reluctantly. About $400,000. And if this development had gone through, you would have made enough to pay that debt? That was part of the plan, yes. So you had significant financial motivation to gain control of your father's property. I was trying to help my family. By excluding your father from decisions about his own land? We were trying to surprise him. With a done deal, he'd have no choice but to accept? That's not how it was. That's exactly how it was. Linda turned to the judge. Your Honor, this isn't about Mr. Frank Morrison's competence. This is about Mr. Derek Morrison trying to legally seize assets he couldn't obtain through honest means. Judge Hammond looked at Derek. Mr. Morrison, did you discuss any of these plans with your father before implementing them? We tried, but he wasn't willing to listen. Did you try more than once? A few times. And each time he said no? He didn't understand? Did he say no? Derek's jaw tightened. Yes. Then it seems to me your father was quite clear about his wishes. Thank you. You may step down. Gerald called Pamela next. She testified about my alleged confusion, my memory problems, my irrationality. All lies, but she delivered them with tears and concern. Linda tore into her on cross-examination. Mrs. Morrison, how often do you visit your father-in-law? A few times a month. Not weekly? No. Not daily? No. So your observations are based on limited interactions? I see him enough to know. Yes or no, Mrs. Morrison? Are your observations based on limited interactions? Yes. Thank you. No further questions. Gerald called his expert, Dr. Raymond Foster, specialist in geriatric psychology. He talked about cognitive decline, about how elderly people often don't recognize their own impairment, about how emotional decisions can indicate deeper issues. It was all theoretical, all statistical, nothing specific to me. Linda asked him one question on cross-examination. Dr. Foster, have you ever examined Frank Morrison? No. Have you ever spoken to him? No. Have you reviewed any medical records specific to him? No. So your testimony is based on general statistics, not on any knowledge of this specific individual? That's correct. Thank you. No more questions. Then it was our turn. Linda called Tom Bradshaw. He testified that I'd been clear and purposeful in all my dealings with the county office, that I'd understood complex zoning regulations, that I'd never shown any signs of confusion. She called Dr. Patterson. He testified that I was in good health for my age, that my last cognitive screening had been normal, that he had no concerns about my mental capacity. And then Linda called me. I walked to the stand, got sworn in, sat down. The courtroom felt very small suddenly, very quiet. Linda started with easy questions. My name, my age, my occupation, building credibility. Then she got to the point. Mr. Morrison, why did you create this trust? To protect my property from being taken without my consent. Taken by whom? By my son and his father-in-law. They were planning to develop my land without my permission. How do you know this? Because my granddaughter told me about a family meeting I wasn't invited to. Because I found development inquiries filed with the county using my property as an asset. Because they'd formed a company and made promises to investors without ever asking me. And when you discovered this, what did you do? I consulted my lawyer. I created a trust to ensure that nobody could make decisions about my property without my explicit consent. Were you angry when you did this? Yes. Did that anger cloud your judgment? No. It clarified it. It helped me see what was really happening. Linda nodded. Mr. Morrison, do you understand what a trust is? Yes. It's a legal entity that holds property for the benefit of designated beneficiaries. In this case, me and my wife. And do you understand the implications of creating one? Yes. It means the property is no longer in my individual name. It belongs to the trust, and only the trustees, me and my wife, can make decisions about it. Why did you want that? Because it prevents anyone else from claiming authority over my property. It ensures that as long as I'm alive and competent, I control what happens to my land. Thank you. No further questions. Gerald stood up for cross-examination. Here we go. Mr. Morrison, you testified that you were angry when you created this trust. Yes. And anger is an emotion, correct? Yes. Would you say you were emotional when you made this decision? I saw the trap, saw where he was going. I was feeling emotion, but I was thinking clearly. Can you be sure? When we're emotional, we don't always recognize our own impairment. I recognized that my son was trying to take something that didn't belong to him. That's not impairment, that's reality. Or is it paranoia? An elderly man feeling vulnerable, seeing threats that don't exist. Objection, Linda said. Counsel is testifying. Sustained. Rephrase, Mr. Winters. Mr. Morrison, is it possible you misunderstood your son's intentions? No. He filed legal documents using my property. There's nothing to misunderstand. He was trying to help you. He was helping himself. Gerald's eyes narrowed. You seem very certain of that. I am. Even though your own son, your own family is telling you otherwise? They're lying. Or you're wrong. I'm not wrong. Mr. Morrison, how old are you? 63. And would you say your memory is as good as it was when you were 40? It's fine, but not as good. Nobody's memory is as good at 63 as at 40. So you acknowledge some decline? Normal aging, not impairment? And how do you know the difference? I looked at Judge Hammond. Your Honor, I run a property maintenance business. I handle contracts, regulations, schedules, budgets. If I were impaired, I couldn't do that. But I do it every day, successfully. Gerald tried a few more angles, tried to make me angry, tried to get me to contradict myself. But I stayed calm, answered clearly, looked at the judge. Finally, he gave up. No further questions. I stepped down, returned to my seat next to Helen. You did great, she whispered. Judge Hammond looked at her notes, looked at both sides. I'm ready to rule. That was fast. Mr. Winters, You've presented evidence suggesting Mr. Frank Morrison might have been influenced or impaired when he created this trust. However, your evidence is mostly speculative. General concerns about age, interpretations of behavior, no concrete proof of actual impairment. She looked at Derek. Mr. Morrison, the younger, I find your testimony self-serving and inconsistent with the documented facts. You clearly had financial motivation to gain control of your father's property. Your claims of concern ring hollow when compared with your actual actions. Derek's face went pale. Ms. Chen, your client presented clear, coherent testimony. His medical records support his competence. The trust was properly executed. I see no basis to invalidate it. She looked at me. Mr. Morrison, I find that you acted rationally and within your rights to protect your property. The trust stands. She banged her gavel. This case is dismissed. It was over. We'd won. Gerald was already packing his briefcase, face tight. Derek sat frozen. Pamela was whispering urgently in his ear. Linda shook my hand. Well done. Thank you. But Frank, this isn't over. Gerald's going to appeal, and Derek's still desperate. Let him appeal. We'll win again. Helen and I walked out of the courthouse into cold November air. The sun was shining, birds were singing, everything normal. But nothing felt normal, because I'd just won a legal battle against my own son. And somehow, that felt more like losing.